You'll need a needle, and I would recommend getting a Shishiko needle. The reason why is because they're really strong and fine at the same time, and they're also really sharp and good for moving through the fabric. You can get these in different lengths as well, so you can go from a shorter needle to quite a long needle, because the idea is that you want to try and get as many stitches onto one needle as you can. You'll need some material, preferably linen or cotton, or a material that has a more open weave so that it's easier to slide the needle through the fabric. You'll need a template and some transfer paper. We've got white transfer paper, and that's because most of the materials we'll be using will be darker and the white shows up better on the dark material, and that's because traditionally Shishiko stitching was done on darker fabrics. You'll obviously need thread, and we'll be using white embroidery thread. White is also traditionally the colour used for Shishiko stitching, and it stands out really well on the darker material. And you'll need a few sewing clips, some scissors, a pencil, and some sticky tape. Step 1, choose your template design. Once you've done that, you need to cut out a piece of transfer paper that's the same size as the template, and you're going to tape the transfer paper to the back of the template. Make sure the shiny side of the transfer paper is facing you, and try not to cover any of the design with the sticky tape, so stick the tape right up close to the edges. Step 2, using the sewing clips, place your template onto your material and clip into place. Then take your pencil and trace over the template design, making sure you don't miss any sections. Once you lift the template, you will be left with the guide marks of your design. It's really important to try not to rub over these too often with your finger, because they'll eventually fade the more you touch them. When you're trying to thread your needle, sometimes it's really difficult with embroidery thread because you've got basically 6 strands of cotton connected together to make a really thick strand, and when you start to try and thread your needle, it just splits and it's really hard to get through. So a little tip that I use is I basically create a little loop at the end like that, and I kind of press it in on itself, and this makes it a lot easier to thread. So you've got it part way through, and then I basically just grab the rest and pull it through like that. And of course you always want your little bit left over dangling there. When you're pulling your stitches through, just so it doesn't pull back out of your needle, I often just hold it like that when I pull it through, just to keep it secure. And of course you're doing a knot at the end to secure it. Now the fun begins. You're going to start stitching your design. The main feature of the Shishiko stitch is that you try and get more than one stitch at a time onto your needle. This will help your stitches to be nice and straight, and it will also save you time. Most Shishiko designs use a basic running stitch. My design is circular, so I'm stitching rounded edges. This means that as I get closer to the centre, I actually need to do less stitches in one go to be able to maintain the curved look. But you'll figure this out as you go. Unlike the first design where there are gaps between each stitch, this design has all the stitches joining, but keeping in mind that both designs use running stitch. So you're starting off as usual, coming through from the back. I've done this first stitch here, then I'm actually going to go down and go to this second row that's running parallel to my first stitch. And you basically keep going row by row by row by row, all in this direction. Like I said, try really hard not to touch the transfer marks because they will begin to rub off the more you touch them. And as you can see on the red, it's a little bit harder to see than on the blue. So I've come to the end of doing my parallel rows, actually still in running stitch. And what I'm going to do is actually knot that off before I start doing the running stitch going the other direction. Just a reminder of how you knot off at the back. What you're always trying to do is create a loop, pop your needle through the loop. So you do need to leave enough cotton to create a decent loop. What I do then is I actually hold the little piece of cotton, the neck of the cotton that's actually coming out of my last stitch hole. I hold that with my fingers. I pull the cotton, and then as it gets towards the bottom, I kind of hold it in place with my finger, and that pushes it all the way down to the bottom. Then I do that again. So I create my second loop, put the needle through, pull, guide it down to the bottom, and then I've got a nice secure double knot. So now I'm working my way across in the other direction. So I'm basically doing parallel lines of stitching, again using running stitch. So it's kind of easier now because you've started to see where you've already stitched, and it's a little bit clearer when you're coming through with your needle because you've got your other stitches as a guide. And you're just pulling that through and creating your lines like that. Remembering as you go just to try and get as many stitches as you can on the needle in one go. And that just keeps things nice and straight with your lines and accurate, but it also is a more efficient way to work. And that's all there is to it. Enjoy creating your Sashiko designs.